everyone, my name is Keely and I'm the owner and creator here at Soy and Shea, and thank you so much for joining me for another behind the scenes look as I make the embeds for the next soap. Now today I am piping some cacti and some succulents, and I'm using some of the tips that you guys gave to me when I did the Japanese cherry blossom soap. Let's go! Alright, so I'm going to jump straight into this. I have already got all of my soap mixed up and ready to split out, or have split it out in colours. I have got an 8B Wilton tip, which is one of the big open tips. I'm going to pop that into my container here, and then I'm going to put all of that soap into this piping bag. So my first cacti is going to be very simple, and I'm just going to pipe it straight onto my tray because I really don't need to be putting it onto flower nails. What I'm going to do is hold my bag straight up and down here, and I'm going to hover about 5 centimeters off the tray, and I'm going to squeeze quite hard and pull up slowly as I'm going, so I make a nice tall cacti. And I'm just going to do as many as I can with this soap that I've got. I don't want to make them too peaky. I want them to be quite rounded at the top if I can. So, whoop, that didn't work. That went really quite peaky. But I'm going to be able to cover those peaks up at the end. I'm doing these ones first so that they can actually harden up a little bit. And then we'll add just a little bit more onto them once they've hardened and I've done some of the other cacti. So I'm just going to squeeze it gently, building it up as I go, and pull it off. I don't think it matters if I pull it up slowly or fast. It's always going to make that little peak. I think I've got enough to do one last one on my tray, so we'll come back to the front here. There's quite possibly enough in there for one more. Let's give it a go. Even if it is just a short one, that will be fine. That looks alright. There's a bit more in there, so let's squeeze as much of that out as possible, and there we have it. That's our first little cacti started. I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, so that's not bad. I do 17 bars, so not all of them are going to have the same cacti, but I'm happy with that number there. So we'll move on to the next cacti while they set up a little bit. For my next one, I'm going to try something that a lot of you actually suggested to me when I did the Japanese cherry blossom soap. I've got a bit of biodegradable film here, and what I've got in this pot here is a little bit of it's a bit of fuchsia pink synthetic mica. It's a new one that I've got in. I wanted to see what they were like and see if they were as nice as the synthetics that I get from my Micro Obsession, which has that real glittery effect. At the moment I can't see that they are going to have that same glittery effect, but it's still a really pretty colour. What I'm going to do is just put it into this film because I want to create a bit of a striped effect on this next one that I do. Well, this next one's more of a succulent as opposed to a cacti. We'll get that pink in there. And then I'm just going to roll up my film. Oops, it's all stuck. Push out that air pocket I can see. Okay, so now that that is all rolled up, I'm going to grab myself my other piping bag, and I've got a Wilton 103 tip in here, and I've got it lined up so that the thinner end is at the seam of my bag. And what I want to do is actually just chop a little bit off the end of this one here, and I'm going to pop this into my piping bag so that it is at the wider end of the tip. So I'm going to put it in along the edge here. Okay, and then into the rest of the piping bag, I have got some chartreuse green mica. So we are going to get that one out and into this piping bag, and then we're going to see if we can get a really nice variegated look on this next cacti or succulent that I'm going to pipe. Okay, so I've got both of my colours in there. Let me just squeeze them down to the bottom. What I'm going to do is just onto another piece of paper, I'm just going to give that a squeeze to make sure that I've got both colours coming out. That's it, we've got both of them coming out now. I'm just going to leave that up to one side. I have got myself some parchment paper and I have got my flower now. I'm going to put a little bit onto my flower now, and I'm going to pick up a piece of my paper, and now I'm just going to put a mound in the middle like so. Now I've got it so that the thinner end of the tip is at the bottom and the wider end is at the top. So this is a little bit different to when you're piping roses, but I need that thicker end of the petal to be up at the top of this one. And I am going to do short little petals. So just working as I squeeze, I'm coming up and down and making a C shape going up and down. It's a bit hard to explain sometimes. Sometimes it just comes naturally when you do this. I am loving this two-tone effect, so thank you to everyone who suggested putting that secondary colour into some plastic film or some of the biodegradable film, and then putting the rest of the colour into the bag. And it is just more so it doesn't get all muddied up, and you do get that sort of differentiation of the colours. Now that should be enough for that one. I'm really pleased with how that one has come up. Thank you so much for that tip. It's just come up so pretty. I'm going to slide that one off and onto my tray. I am going to actually use some of this waste over here to stick my little piece of paper on. And again, I'm going to make just that little mound in the middle. It doesn't have to be pretty. This is just giving me some height and some structure to actually build that sort of shape around. So what I'm doing is I start squeezing, and I've got my bag down the bottom of the nail. As I turn my nail, I bring my bag up and then bring it back down as I turn it, and that's what actually creates the sort of pattern of these little succulent petals on here. So the idea is I'm making lots of little leaves, whereas with a rose I'd be making bigger ones, and I'd probably actually be shaping it a lot more. I'm basically keeping my bag at the same angle, whereas with a rose you would work from in and work out, and you would also have that thinner edge up at the top to give it a thinner look. Having your thicker edge up at the top gives that nice rounded look of a really juicy succulent. So I'm really pleased with how these are coming up here. Grab a little bit more to stick my piece on. With these, I'm just actually checking these pieces I'm using. These aren't actually parchment paper. When I've had stickers, or when I've done my labeling and I've had some of the labeling sheets left at the end, I have actually just simply cut them up into squares, and they work really well for doing your piping on because it's a nice shiny edge for the soap. So again, I'm just going round and building up. I'm not even sure what I've seen pictures of these little succulents, and I see them piping these all the time on like the Wilton channel, and I absolutely love what they look like, but I have no idea what sort of cacti or what sort of succulent these are. But I'm loving these two colours together, so pretty. I used to love, and I still do, love cacti and succulents. They were one of these things I started growing with when I was a child because I knew I couldn't kill them. In fact, Mum's still actually got some of the cacti I was growing when I was living at home, and they are huge now. and the one of them comes into flower every year. It tends to flower at night time, and it's just got these beautiful blooms on them. But unfortunately their blooms only last for a couple of days before they pass over. But it's so pretty to see all these cacti, and I know that they are at least, oh, I don't know, they must be at least 20 years old, these plants. They really are quite a sight to see. But I do like them because I find they're one of the most robust sort of plants you can have. It doesn't matter if you forget to actually water them. That's the whole point of a cacti or a succulent. And they have the most beautiful flowers on them as well. They're just, usually they're so bright and vibrant. These little plants that can be so dangerous if you get a bit too close to them. You know, they spike you and things. But they have the most beautiful flowers. And some of the ones that specifically flower at night time, they just smell amazing. You wouldn't know that they were actually cacti that you were smelling some nights. Right, that one is looking okay there. You can see I'm getting really low on the pink. I must have completely misjudged how much I needed in there, but I might be able to rescue it and get some more pink in there because I do have a bit left over. Alright, let's squeeze a bit more. And there goes the phone again. Oh, another call that's just gone straight through to the message bank for them to hang up. It's been absolutely ridiculous these last 2 weeks. I think it must be about 2 weeks now. Every day from about, it must be about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, right up until about 5 o'clock, I get a phone call every half hour. And I know what it is. You know, that usual, your computer's broken, your Windows is broken, or some other rubbish that it is. We got one the other day and hubby actually answered it. They said, oh, your internet's going to be cut off unless you join the NBN. It's like, that's really nice, but unfortunately our house is not configured to the NBN, so you really can't be threatening us with that. And they very quickly hung up because there are actually some houses here in Australia that will probably never ever get the NBN because of the way their internet was set up. I do have a bit of fun with them occasionally though, if I'm just in the mood. Usually if they call up and say, oh, there's a problem with your Windows computer, it's like, oh, what's a computer? Or you say to them, well, that's nice, but I have an Apple computer. And they very quickly hang up if you tell them you've got an Apple computer. And it's like, I wish they would just stop calling. Surely by now they've actually got the picture that this number doesn't fall for those cons, so stop calling. But anyway, I have worked out that if you do ignore them for quite some time, then they eventually do give up. But whoever this one is, they are really, really persistent. And as I said, it's been for about 2 weeks now, from about 1 o'clock till about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. They just ring and ring and ring every half hour. And it's just getting frustrating now. But I know that if I answer, they will just continue to ring. Alright, we are getting through this. There is still actually a bit of pink. I'm going to keep piping this one out, and then we are going to move on to the final cacti or succulent that I am going to be adding to the weekend soap. Okay, and for the last one, I am going to use that same method again because I really like how that has come out. I have got some bronze sparks in this soap. Just going to spread it out on this bit of film here. And then I'm going to put it into my bag like I did before. And this time I have one of the leaf tips in there. I think it was a 352, but I will leave the number up on the screen if that is incorrect. Got all of that scraped out of that jar, or that jug, into here. Get as much of it off my finger because I don't want to waste any of it. And again, I'm going to roll that up, push out any of the air pockets there. won't cut so much off the end of this time, so I don't end up with a whole lot of the gold squeeze or the bronze squeeze through before I get the green. Now I'm not really too bothered whereabouts in this bag that I end up putting it. Yep, it's a 352 tip. I'm kind of just going to pop that kind of in the middle so that it kind of comes out in the middle of the leaf, and then I am going to fill the rest of the bag up with some, what colour did we use? The Jade Micro, I believe it was. That's this one here. Just going to put this over on its side a little bit and then use my spatula to push the green down, but try not to squish any of that bronze out yet. Let's push that down towards the tip. That's better. Alright. Again, I'm just going to grab a bit of scrap paper, squeeze until I get both of those colours coming through, hopefully. Maybe I didn't push down enough this time. Ooh, it's got to start coming soon. Let's push some of that out of the way. Manipulate that bronze down in there. Nope, it just looks like we're going to get green. No, we're just going to get the green come out. Alright, let me rethink this. Okay, hopefully I have got that sorted. Oh, that's better. What I had done was I had actually somehow twisted a knot. Oh, don't tell me that's split already. Oh, man. Alright, we have got a split piping bag. I don't think I'm meant to actually pipe this particular cacti. It looks like this new piping bag I've just done has actually got a hole in it. So let's pop it into a new bag and give that a good squeeze. Want both of those colours to come out. I think may have a slight... Right. Alright. Let's try now. Alright, I just don't know if this one is going to work. Oh yeah, we've got two colours coming out now. Let's put that pile to one side. Basically, when I had a look, I had put a knot into the... Well, not so much a knot, but I twisted the film so much that the soap couldn't come through originally, and now I actually just discovered I had the film sticking out the nozzle. Right, let's give this a go. What I'm going to do is pipe myself a center just to give myself a bit of an idea of where I am going from, and what I'm going to now do is kind of just squeeze. I've got my bag the wrong way. That's it. I'm going to squeeze and create some spiky leaves going around in a circular sort of shape, and I'm going to fill in all the bottom. I'm going to come up to the next layer and I'm going to angle my bag up a little bit, and I'm going to come between those leaves. Now I did this very similar thing when I did the agave lime soap as well, but this is just another form of cacti that you often see. They've got just lots of leaves with the pokey end, and as I come up I'm actually squeezing a lot lighter, and that is going to be one of our last cacti. I'm so glad I finally got that one to work. Alright, so let's get our tray back here, slide that one off, and we'll pipe another one. Alright, so this time around I'm not going to actually put my dollop in the middle. I'm just going to work flat. I've got my piping bag so that the V's are pointing out towards the sides, and as I squeeze, that's what's going to form the shape of that leaf. I think the plastic wrap or the film that's in there, it's not plastic, but I don't know what else to actually call it. Biodegradable film is just such a mouthful. But that's what it is, and I think that keeps clogging up this particular nozzle. It didn't on the last one, so maybe that sort of technique is only suitable for certain piping tips. It's all a big learning curve, really. That's another one done. So again, I'm just going to squeeze. As I finish squeezing, that's when I'm pulling, and that gives that really nice pointy tip. Like so. Loving that bronze colour now that it's coming out properly. And I'm constantly turning the nail, so you let both hands actually do the work on this particular piping. Normally you let the nail do a majority of the work, but on this one you do actually need to do a little bit more with your piping hand as well as your nail hand. And they are coming up really quite cute. So I am absolutely loving how the colours are coming out on these. So thank you again so much for that tip about putting the colours into the film. I know this particular one has given me a little bit of grief, but it could also be because the piping is setting up that little bit more as well. And it is a different tip, so I'll probably have to have a really good play around with which tips to use this sort of technique on. I'll probably have to have a play with how much to put into the film. There's just so much sort of learning that goes into it. But as I always say to people, never be afraid just to jump in and give things an actual go. You'll never actually know if you can do something until you do give it a go. And some people say, oh, but mine just, that doesn't look good. But you know what, if you only ever do it once and you never do it again, you're never going to improve. I'm going to get this last one done, and then we'll move back to the very first cacti that we piped out. Well, that was certainly a very messy cacti to actually do, but what I'm going to do is come back to these first ones here, and I'm going to try and pipe some little flowers on the top here. Hopefully my batter hasn't got too thick. No, it should be fine. It is a little bit thick, but it's probably also to do with the tip that I've got on here. Alright, so I've actually just put this one onto a nail to make it a little bit easier. I've got a tip 81 in this bag, and all I'm going to do is turn my piping nail and just put a tiny little flower onto the top of them, a bit like making a rose. But with this, it's probably not how you get meant to use this tip, but it's still going to make a really pretty one. Now I'm just going to pull some of these tips up. This has actually got quite hard, but it's looking quite pretty. Oh, I really like the look of that. This is actually hardened up enough that I can be very, very gentle and pick those up. Let's grab the next one here. A little bit of a wrap around the top just to make it look a bit like the bud. Very similar to how you would actually build up a little rose. I really am making this up as I go along. And what I'm going to do now is just come back from the bottom and come up and just pull up and make some big sort of petals. And honestly, this is not how you'd probably use this tip, but it's giving me a really pretty little cacti flower. It's something very, very different to what is usually on them. Oh, I'm absolutely loving how they're coming up. They are so cute. They look just like one of the cacti that I actually grew at Mum and Dad's. It was one of these green ones, and it has this bright pink, or this bold pink flower on the top of it. So I actually have some more of this fuchsia pink in this one that was left over from the from the second succulents cacti that we piped. And I've got it so that it's like a little smile, like you can see it on there, it's a little smiley tip. And I've got it so the curve is actually pointing, so it goes that way. So the indent of the curve is pointing towards me. And I'm just twisting and letting it kind of build up into that sort of rose shape. And now that I've got a big enough one, I'm just going to add some little outside petals. So I piped these ones out first so that they were actually stiff enough for me to be able to come in and add these flowers without really interfering with the actual shape of the cacti, so they're actually firm enough to hold themselves while doing this extra work. It's not that I'm actually putting any pressure on them, but sometimes when they are still just newly piped, they don't like having extra weight put onto the top in the shape of these flowers. So I'm loving how these are coming up. I'm actually going to finish piping these ones off camera now. It is getting quite late and it's that sort of time when people start walking up the street, so my dogs will start barking very soon, so I need to go and get them inside. So I am going to sign off for now and then go and get the weekend soap stuff ready. I hope you have enjoyed watching how I am piping the cacti and succulent to go on the weekend soap. If you enjoyed watching today, why not leave me a thumbs up and any comments down below. If you've got any questions, I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. And until the next video, I hope you have a great week and I will see you then. Bye.